Washington lands a commitment from three-star offensive lineman Peter Langi.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into a special bonus edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. He's site editor with Athlon Sports Inside the Huskies. I'm the site editor with Huskies Wire. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming at you on this Sunday night with a special bonus episode because Lars, Washington landed a commitment from three-star offensive lineman Peter Langi. He becomes the sixth player to commit to Washington in this 2025 class just a few weeks before signing day. We're also on this bonus show, we're going to get into some of the other things that might happen before signing day, but this is a really nice commitment. This is great depth. He's ranked number 77 along the interior offensive lineman by 247 Sports, but you look at his tape and you look at his offer list and you say, no, this guy should be a lot higher than that.
Right. And I think it's one of those cases of, this is the identification process that we talk about with Brennan Carroll. This is not a late ad. This is not a late, oh, hey, look at this guy. They know of him before they knew of Stascausky. So to give you any context of how their staff has felt about it, and we talked about it over the summer. I believe he was supposed to come up in June for an official, some point along there. May, June, July, pick one.
You're right.
Not July because you can't take an official in July. But no, but the point being that this was a case of, okay, how are the numbers working out long term? Is this a guy where maybe in 2 years you're expecting somebody else to leave and thinking, okay, you know what? We like him enough. Let's take him now, get him a redshirt year, get him physically in the shape that we want him to with Tyler Owens, as you mentioned on Monday's show, and say, hey, you know what? We like what you project us. And we'll get into this a little bit. Where are you a tackle or are you a guard? Are you Troy Fautano or are you Nate Caleppo? Where it's because both of them were ranked as a tackle coming out, but one proved to be way more of a tackle in college.
Well, I don't think that either of those guys are. I like where your head's at. I don't think anything you said is wrong, but in terms of everything he is, in terms of his tape, his physicality, his frame, he reminds me of Jonas Savaiena, the Arizona tackle, where somebody else that Brennan Carroll developed, just scouted, did a really good job of finding and saying, this is what we want you to be. We like your size. We like this, and finding a way to put him in advantageous situations. And that's exactly what I think Peter Langi is, where I don't necessarily think that he's going to play really early like Jonah did, because now Washington's got a whole ton of depth. I really like the way this offensive line class is shaking out, where Stascausky obviously being that piece where we're going to get into just what that situation might look like. We'll discuss that, but with or without him, there's a lot of really solid depth in this class. Jack Schaefer, where that guy, I feel like his ad went a little bit under the radar in terms of the player that he is, what he can turn into. You think about Champ Talele, you think about Lowen Coleman Brusa, just everything that you've seen along the offensive line. You look at it and you can just say, yeah, this is, I don't want to say a lot of fun where it's all long-term projection at the position, but it's something where you look at it and you say, that's a Big Ten offensive line class where I know we're going to hear, oh, he's a 3-star. And this is this guy has 39 offers. You look up and down his offer list and he was wanted by everybody in the country. Came down to Arizona, Auburn, Penn State, Texas A&M, and Washington. Washington did a really good job there, where the recruitment fell off a little bit at the end. But that doesn't mean that he's not a talented player. And that doesn't mean that this isn't a great take by this coaching staff.
Right. Well, and the other side of that coin is, let's say other teams didn't want him for X, Y, and Z reasons, and he ends up developing into the player that we both think, and Brennan Carroll and Jedd think he could be at Washington. That's on the other schools for not willing to take that chance. And that's the point of depth. That's the point of this. Isn't a, hey, this is the guy this is the Champ Talele of the class. This is the Stascausky. That's not the case. It's not that he couldn't end up being the best lineman in this class, but you just look at it and think, you know what? We'll give you 24 months, and if it doesn't work out, then you can transfer. And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but those are that's kind of the mentality you have to take, where it's like, look, we can take you now, knowing in 26 we'll let it be what it is next year, and we'll move forward. Where it's like he's a good enough take once you add into, if he can improve in these certain areas and find out his skills a little bit and things like that. Because again, he's not going to play next year. So this is really a 2026-25 take where you're looking at this saying, what are you going into the end of next year with? No guard, whoever you replace it, right guard, all those sorts of things. Because then at that point, that's when those redshirt freshmen that we saw this year are going to need to be asked to say, hey, I'm not saying, Jedd and that class. I'm saying the guys who will be redshirt freshmen in 26, one being Peter Langi, those are the guys you can say, hey, you know what? Yeah, he's had 2 years in our system, signed year 1, knows what we want. Kind of like a Savaina, to your point, where it's, hey, by the time you get ready to make an impact, you already have a running start. You don't have to be, now we got to get him into shape. Now we got to get him to this and that, which is where the redshirt freshmen were this year when Jedd inherited him from last year. And so it's like, okay, there's 2 sides of the coin. And at this point, with the class you have already, why not make that long-term bet? Because also, he's got a younger brother. He's got some, he's a West Coast kid. He's a California kid. Same high school as Chris Lawson, the 4-star receiver commit. And his head coach is like, look, he's a Sunday guy. Just make sure when he gets into shape and when he gets into, he could be a Sunday guy. And I think that's why Brennan Carroll takes him, is it's like, okay, if the upside is there, we can work through and massage what it's going to take to get there, because it's not a 4-year project. It's probably like an 18-month project.
No, you're absolutely right, Lars. We got so much more that we got to get to about Langi after a quick break. Because we've got a message from our good friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Just heads up for Monday Night Football for anybody out there who's going to watch the Chargers and the Ravens. Go check out all the Ladd McConkey lines. I like the over in catches, the over in yards, anytime touchdown. The Ravens have not been that good against the pass this year, and Ladd has quickly become Justin Herbert's favorite target. So, Lars, a little bit more on Peter Langi here before we move on, because there's a lot that could happen between now and signing day. But I love where you're talking about with the depth, where I don't necessarily know if this signals anything where, hey, we don't necessarily think we're in good standing with a whole bunch of 26 kids. I don't think that's what it means. I think this is Jedd trying to do exactly what he's been preaching since he got here, which is build depth and build a Big Ten program, where I look at Peter Langi and I see somebody who right away, whenever he does hit the field, is somebody who can establish the run, whether it be a guard, at tackle. He's somebody who you look at him and going downhill and you say, oh yeah, I'm confident in that guy blocking Big Ten defensive ends and Big Ten defensive tackles. That's what this take is about, where if he works out, great. If he doesn't, so it's a late take and you're trying to take, 4 or 5 guys along the offensive line every year. And this is a great sign for that, because this is building that depth along the offensive line where you're creating the healthy competition at the position where the best player wins out, where you say, okay, we have a whole bunch of guys in here with the ideal size, the ideal movement skills that we want to be able to run this offense effectively, no matter who's behind him at quarterback. And this is a perfect encapsulation of that. With you look at just the other guys in the room right now and the other guys that you're bringing in alongside him.
Absolutely. Well, it's one thing where one of the other schools he's considering is, his top final list is Penn State. And what did Jedd mention after Penn State? 900 to 1,100 pounds difference in the two deeps. I'm not saying Peter Langi makes up 900 pounds, but he absolutely probably along the offensive line makes up 150.
Sure.
That's just one dude. And then you look at it, because again, depth charts being what they were that week, you just look at what it was, and it's like those are the types of guys where you're not just getting because a big body. You're not just getting, hey, let's go add. There was that one TCU transfer that's like 550. It's like, no, you're not just adding him. You're not just doing that to make math. You're doing it you're getting the correct bodies. You're doing it with the vision of exactly what you said. This is what this program needs to look like: big hosses in the trenches, athletic long tackles, in between centers in terms of whether they're 6'3" or 6 foot. What doesn't really matter at this point. Like it's you're building everything and Jedd Jedd's not dumb. For all intents and purposes, I know he might make some head scratching play calls every now and then and might make some head scratching decisions, but the guy knows football. The guy knows what the score is and what he has to do. And that's why I think this year has been so painful. But it's like the pain this year is going to be reinflicted on everybody else next year when Jedd's like, hey, now I know what we got. Now I know how to beat you. Watch this.
So I'm really glad that's what you want to mention, because that's what this is, where, I remember we heard him talk like on the first or second day of fall camp, and he was talking about, hey, like, we need to make this a Big Ten team. We need to be bigger. We need to be stronger. This is the kind of take that asserts that, where, I think about the old off the bus slogan every once in a while, where you need some of those off the bus guys. This is what that is, where, like, of course that's not everything, right? Like, that's so far from it. But this is one of those things where you think about what Washington was in the Pac-12 versus what Washington needs to be in the Big Ten. This is what it is. Getting players like Peter Langi, where it's, you need this big physical kind of dude where, I think about one of the things that I like to see that we've seen a little bit this year is the sixth offensive lineman, when it's Zach Henning or whoever it might be. Imagine that's Peter Langi in some of those sets where I was watching a whole lot of football today, and I kept watching Vita Vea get trotted out there at fullback in the Bucs Giants game. And that's what I think about. It's little things like that where you think about establishing your will. Voitanufi playing fullback against Michigan. Now you can bring in an offensive lineman in that spot because you've developed that depth, where these are silly little things. But at the end of the day, you think about physicality. You think about some of those little things that Jedd Fisch has, emphasized endlessly. This is what that is. But Lars, before we get out of here, we need to talk about some of the other things that might happen before signing day. Right after a message from our good friends over at Game Time, because Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Whether it be, you want to go see the Husky basketball team play, you want to go watch the Seahawks, the Kraken. There's so many great tickets that you can find over on the Game Time app, because with Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. With their all-in pricing, you can toggle this feature to show the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference. You can find a lower price somewhere else. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, Lars, there are a couple things I'm really interested in watching out for between now and signing day. Number one being Zach Stascausky, where it feels like this is a take that mitigates that flip if it were to happen. Obviously, it's not like a one-for-one sort of thing there, but it's also something where you feel a lot more comfortable having Peter Langi in this class versus not.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, that's what we're saying. Like, he's more. I think he's more of an interior guy. He could play tackle. I know you have him as a tackle long term. Not to have him as a tackle, but you see him more so growing into that than I do. Stascausky is a pure tackle. So I think from that perspective, it's not a like for like take, but it does. When you're talking about losing a guy, and I think the other side of the equation is you don't want to lose 2 to Oregon. I think that's kind of the other side of this equation, where it's like you already lost Vanderploeg, who was, again, like Terrence Ferguson's fine, but I'm not necessarily sure I'm going to Oregon to be a tight end. But that's neither here nor there. So the one thing that you can do, because Mario Cristobal's not there, Alex Mirabal is no longer there, Brennan Carroll is your offensive line coach at Washington. It's NFL offensive line coach versus, Oregon and just the reputation that is Oregon. And if you're Stascausky, it's yes, I did make a massive jump. Washington saw me before Oregon did. Georgia saw me before Oregon did. So it's one of those, if Stascausky ends up at Georgia
or Michigan at this point, where he took that visit after the whole Bryce Underwood thing,
but I'm bag only exclusive there. He goes to Michigan.
That's fair. So Lars, I'm really glad you mentioned Vanderploeg, where one thing I know you and I have heard over the last couple of days or so is that there might be another tight end added to this class. That's all we can say on the matter at the time, but that's something to watch out for. But the last thing that you and I need to talk before we get out of here is Donovan Olugbode, where, I mentioned the Bryce Underwood thing. Seems like Andrew Marsh probably going to end up staying there. But now the pressure's on Donovan Olugbode, where it always kind of felt like with both of those guys, where if you want to take both and you end up taking both, all right, you figure it out. You find a way to figure that out. They're incredibly talented players. That's great. It always felt like it might be one or the other. You and I thought it would be Marsh. Now it looks like the pressure is getting turned up on Olugbode. And that's something where you want to find a way to really put the cherry on top at the end of this class. That'd be a great guy to do it.
And the one that, no offense, not that Marsh didn't make sense, but you already got one IMG dude.
Sure.
Might as well
Why not get them both?
Go get the other one. Like, and that's the other side of that equation. And I forgot, he's from Illinois, right?
That's correct.
Originally. So it's not hey, you're getting a Florida kid. Florida, it's a much harder pull. But it's like, that's why I remember telling you on the sidelines of, I think, the UCLA or USC game, where it's like, look, if you had Jeremiah and one up, or do you take both? And I think whether Jeremiah comes back, that's still to be sorted out. But you just look at it, it's like, all you really need is one of them, because the receiver class, much like the offensive line class, pretty stacked. Desi Jose, I know we both like him.
Desmond Roebuck's been awesome.
Right, exactly. Desmond Roebuck's going to be one of those guys that's like, how is he a 3-star? Again, who cares? Like, you answer those questions 3-4 years down the line when Jedd gets to posture up on a Monday press conference, like, yeah, I don't know why nobody else wanted Desmond Roebuck. We must have done some extra scouting on him. It's like, but again, that's the whole point of getting a coach like Fisch with Matt Doherty, the player personnel guy, Josh Mora, the recruiting guy, all these people where it's like, look, Washington's putting the time in to invest to find these guys. You can only have so many of those guys before you need to make sure you get the blue chipper at the top. And this is that perfect, and by the way, as much as I've been, a fan of Missouri quietly because of who the OC is down there, I will say the use of Luther Burton has been a little perplexing this season. So if the sell is, hey, Donovan, you're going to come in and be our Luther Burton, it's like, cool, I'm going to show up for the first 6 games of the season and then disappear. Awesome. That sounds like a great plan. Now, again, has Washington's receivers been lights out? I mean, Denzel was leading those Big Ten in touchdowns for a while there, and Giles has been
tied for it.
Right, and Giles has been good. No, but my point is the allure seems to have worn off a little bit of the, hey, come be a Washington receiver, be the next Roma Dunze, the next Jalen Poole, the next Jalen McMillan. But all the pieces are there in this offense to make that happen, and I think Donovan knows that. And especially with Kevin Cummings, when you look at next season with DeMond and everything the offense is going to be able to do, I think there's more onus on Donovan saying, hey, you know what? I like the atmosphere. I like everything. I want to see. And of the two, he was the only one that actually confirmed that he showed up for the UCLA game. I know we did both see Andrew Marsh there, but he was the only one that publicly on social media at least posted something indicating, hey, I am in Seattle at this current moment in time.
Lars, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all every day who's tuning in. We really do appreciate your support, and make sure you subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating the channel with new content every single day. So make sure to click that like button, click that little bell so you never miss when we post a new video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them right down below in the comment section. And if you're audio only, please leave us 5-star reviews. It does help us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you on Monday.